Hello and welcome to the show. This is the Legends of the Wind podcast. I'm Jurri Schenck. Thanks for joining us this day. It's so exciting to have you here. I want to let you know that today's story is super special. It's a very unique designed visually, as you will hear in the short bit. But welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. Our guest, Danielle Adams, is going to be receiving a story today. And I want you to think about something. I want you to think about, what if there is a magical library in the realms of heaven, and in that library it contains books with stories written about you and me. Imagine that these books and these stories were not just literal stories like a true life tale, but more of an adventure or a fantasy or a mystery or a romance story. And they contain all sorts of treasures and hidden things in the storytelling. And that's what we do here at Legends of the Wind. We do provide prophetic parables or prophetic stories. And it's up to us to find out, what are the treasures inside these stories? What do they mean? How do they apply to our lives? Now, if you knew that there were books written about you with stories that are absolutely amazing, wouldn't you want to know what story you're in? Wouldn't you want to find out who you are in your hero's journey? That's the things that we do here in these stories, just for you. And so we provide them through my special gift and for creative storytelling. And so I'm so excited for you guys joining us today. Now, we just had, today we're having 3 broadcasts, and today is the second broadcast out of the 3. And earlier, we had Nicole on our show, and that was an amazing story about a journey of initiation. And it really dealt with some trauma and her relationships with other people. And yet it ended well, where she found out that she is worthy to be loved. So check out that previous broadcast on our YouTube channel at Legends of the Wind. Highly recommend you check out all of our episodes. Even though these stories are written for other people, that does not mean that you won't benefit from them. Now, if you want to order your own story and have one delivered by me to you on this podcast, go to legendsofthewind.com and find our store or shop and look for the product Become a Legend. And there you can find out how to order. And also, there are some agreements that we require. One is that there's a release for you to be appearing on the show. The other is a contract for us, so that we have the right to publish your story and other things as well. It's nothing weird or out of the ordinary, but that's just how we have to operate. And also, you get to schedule your show with us. So there'll be a calendar that you can look at and find what works for your schedule. And so I'm excited to have you guys order a story. These stories are so powerful. Everyone is so different and so unique. And I highly encourage you to order a story, because there's something powerful when you find out what story you're in. And by the way, my wife Alisha Choi, if you look at the background here, this is from the Fire Bear. She did some illustrations, and some people like to order a hardcover or a softcover illustration of their own story by Alisha. And you can find that product as well on our store. Also, and on Amazon and at our website, Legends of the Wind, we have our book. This is volume 1. It contains 20 prophetic stories written for children and adults. And like I said just a moment ago, just because these stories are written for someone else does not mean you will not benefit from them. They contain amazing adventures and amazing revelations that you will find great inspiration and hope with. So I would love you to check those out. Now, welcome to the show. Enough of the business side of things. I'd like to welcome our guest, Danielle Adams. So Danielle, I'm bringing you in now. Hello, welcome, Danielle. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on today.
This is exciting. I'm like I told you before the broadcast, that my wife Alisha loves your story, and you're about to find out. Why don't you say something to the audience to kind of introduce yourself? Tell us about yourself.
Sure. I am a rare native Tennessean, one of the few that are left here with all the rest of the world moving here. I live in Middle Tennessee. I have a family, a husband and one son who is just turned 16. And so we're enjoying all the sweetness of helping release him into being an adult. I have a small business and work some admin jobs, also a home group that meets here, and I work with a discipleship group or community here in my city, working to reach our county to help them know Jesus. And so I'm
Wow.
really honored to be a part of all of that and to be surrounded by an amazing community.
That is a well put, well spoken. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. I mean, I'm glad that you have such good family and support from all your community members. That's great. I hope they're watching tonight. Now, why did you request a prophetic story? Like, what was in your heart?
Sure. I am a person who is always curious and I love surprises. That's just part of my makeup. And when I saw that Joe was getting a story, I thought, number one, I love surprises. I would love to hear if the Lord has a surprise for me in this story or something, some type of um, understanding or discernment or all the different things that he wants to share from his heart. Um, so I love that. And then, of course, I got to hear Joe's story, and I could relate even to some of the things that you were sharing with him
Mm-hmm.
and knowing him a little bit, and was really happy about that. And so I thought I would love to get a story. I would love to hear more. And I love the medium as well. The storytelling medium really, I would think, really brings people's defenses down. And so I wanted to have that experience, possibly to see if I could try my hand at doing maybe a miniature
Oh,
version for
why
someone
not?
else.
Great. Now, you mentioned Joe's. There may be people in the audience that don't know who Joe is. Why don't you tell us who Joe is?
So Joe Moon is my cousin, and he lives in Wyoming with his family, and they have a ministry there. And he and his wife and his family are just amazing people. Um, we were just talking about how Jurri and I were just talking before the show about how they people are always at their house and on their porch, just in relationship with them, and it's just beautiful. So we feel close to them. We've gone out and done some missions work, though I'm not sure which way the missions was going. We got exposure to some wonderful things there with him, but we love
Wow.
him.
Great. Great. Now, just so if people who have never seen you before, seen the show before, have I ever contacted you or interviewed you prior to this broadcast?
No.
Right. So I don't know who you are. In fact, I didn't even know who you are until today that you were related to Joe. But, just so people know that I write these stories blind. And, of course, no Joe, right? He's my pastor. I will set those things I know about him aside and just go and look and see what is the story being told. But for you, Danielle, I have had no clue anything about you, right? So that's how I like to operate, because I want to be able to take that risk and see God show up for you and for me. So now part of the part of the story's telling ability on this show is that I've learned that I have to properly frame it. So these stories are meant to be taken symbolically, not literally. And these stories are a revelation. And what happens is that in the prophetic, the story is a revelation, and our conversation afterward is more of an interpretation. And then we try to find out, if possible, what is the application of the story's revelation to you. Now, you have a choice in the story. You can say, yes, I received this story, or no, I do not. Or you can say yes or no to parts of it. And sometimes you may need to take some time and sit on it, or stew or marinate in it. And by the way, everybody who I've given a story to is like a drinking from a fire hose of revelation. And even people in the audience, they're like listening along with us. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. But then when the story's over, what do we talk about? How do we talk about it? And I understand that your position. So I've been prepared to know how to handle this conversation. But for you, I want you to feel safe and encouraged. Okay? Sound good?
Yes.
All right. This is the question I often like to ask. Do you know what time it is, Danielle?
It's story time.
Yay, there we go. I love your enthusiasm. Just before we get into it, there's a couple people in the chat that want to say hi. Lisa says hi, greetings, prayer. Joe Moon. Who's this Joe Moon guy? He's always popping up. He says hi from Joe and Rachel and Micah. My wife, Alisha, and Kylie, my daughter, are saying hello, everyone. And then Lisa says, yes, they are. Love the moon. So, all right. Now we have welcomed everybody. And by the way, when we're done reading the story in the chat, please chime in, add your comments, add your questions. We want to include you on the show as well. Okay? Here we go. Story time. The Wizard of Dreams. Danielle's wish was when she would go to bed at night that her dreams would fill her with hope. For many years in the real world, she faced countless obstacles and disappointments. Her hard work was hard, and there were people who did not understand her. Sometimes she was clumsy and would drop objects or knock over things just at the wrong moments. The mundane life of retail and office work was not her thing. This constant conflict and stress made her want to escape. She didn't earn enough money to move away, and the city she lived in was definitely attractive, and her friends treated her well. It was just everything else that drained her. Hence, her dreams were a place to escape. One night, she had a tough conversation with a friend that resulted in a disagreement left unresolved. The pain and anger in Danielle's heart were shouting out. Her soul's stress filled her, and she went to bed on an empty stomach. They were supposed to have dinner together, but everything fell apart. This great disappointment made her bitter, and she wanted to prove to her friend she was right, and that the misunderstanding was all her friend's fault. The miscommunication and misunderstanding ate at Danielle's soul and consciousness. As Danielle lay down in her bed for the night, she felt restless. The heat and humidity of the summer weather added to her discomfort, so she turned on the fan next to her bed. It blew a comforting breeze that was cool, and Danielle felt better. Danielle closed her eyes and looked into the realm of darkness behind her eyelids. At the moment, all she saw was the noise of her brainwaves that her stress produced. Danielle breathed deeply in and out, and she slowed down into unconsciousness. This is when she found herself falling. Danielle fell out of a tiny airplane wearing a parachute backpack, and the drop terrified her. The clouds far below her were pink, and the sky was blue-green. The earth floor thousands of feet down below was yellow and red, with many stripes on them, dividing the countless fields of farms and forests. It was a pattern of another world, similar to Candyland or a Dr. Seuss story. Fear and helplessness gripped Danielle's heart. She had no control over the fall, and her body plummeted further. Danielle reached for the parachute pull handle and found it wasn't there. "Oh no!" cried Danielle. Losing control made her panic. She continued to fall. Danielle spread out her limbs, and this enabled her to slow slightly. She found she could twist and turn her hands and feet, which made her able to spin. Through some experimentation, she learned she could direct her maneuvers, yet she had no parachute to save her. Then Danielle remembered that this was a dream and not reality. She realized she could create her own world and physics. "Stop!" cried out Danielle. Suddenly her body froze in midair. The rushing wind was no more. Danielle hovered over the magically colored ground only 50 feet high. Great relief filled her soul. Danielle floated to the ground, and she stood on her feet. She loosened the straps from her backpack, and when she set it down, the parachute popped open. Danielle cried out in surprise, and she watched the gentle fabric flutter to the ground. "Why didn't you help me earlier?" grumbled Danielle. This delayed reaction caused the deep pain inside her heart to surface. There had been many times she was in a crisis, and she called out for help. But in the end, there was a miracle for her, even though key people she knew did not arrive on time. This repeated pattern of delay made her think she was not worthy to deserve love. Deep inside Danielle's heart, she wished people would pay more attention to her. Yellow and blue grass surrounded Danielle as she stood in a large field. There were trees full of orange leaves that rustled in the wind. The odd colors of this land made Danielle confused. She didn't understand what to make of the place. Danielle walked through the grass and turned around to see what the land held. Soon she found a purple gravel road, and its path led her to the east, toward the mountains. The peaks looked like carved rocks with many patterns of stripes on them. Danielle realized her wish to escape to another world may not have been a good idea. To her surprise, Danielle looked out, and floating and jumping in the air about 15 feet above the road was a white puff cloud made of whipped cream. Sitting on top of the cloud was a large fluffy man with a thick white beard. He wore a blue pointed cap with stars on it. The wizard sang a joyful song that seemed to make him unaware of the world around him. The cloud hopped up and down, and as soon as it reached Danielle, it halted, which awakened the wizard. "Oh, hello, young lady. Who might you be?" asked the wizard. "I'm Danielle. Who are you?" "Oh, I am the Wizard of Dreams. I grant wishes to those who are worthy of need. Do you have a wish, my dear? This question alarmed Danielle. She thought no one would care to ask her what she wanted or what she needed. Many ideas filled her mind as to what would be the best thing she could ask for. Then Danielle decided on a different approach. Tell me what I should ask for, replied Danielle. You must be so wise and honorable that I couldn't even know what I need. Somehow you know better than me. Danielle's words made the Wizard of Dreams' eyes brighten. He bubbled with excitement and pulled the hair of his beard. Ah, you are very clever. The wizard stroked his beard again and pondered at Danielle. The puffy white cloud lowered more and came closer to Danielle as the wizard examined her. You aren't from here, are you? What is this pain in your heart I see? You should ask for healing. Mixed emotions stirred in Danielle's heart after the wizard said these words. She stood still, and her breath became short and difficult. She said, Then I ask for healing. The wizard then sat up straight and produced a wand in his hand. He waved it around and snapped it. Lightning shot out of the wand, and the bolt extended into a tree next to the gravel road. A puff of smoke exploded on the tree's trunk, and 3 mirrors appeared, which hung on nails. The wizard beckoned Danielle to come closer to the tree. He said, My dear precious one, which of these reflections shows the true you? Danielle looked at her reflection in each mirror. One mirror was concave and made her reflection look upside down. The second mirror was convex and made her face look fat. The third mirror was flat and produced a correct image. Danielle thought and thought. The question stumped her. I don't know. What should I answer? Asked Danielle. The wizard and his cloud floated over to Danielle. She cried small tears down her cheeks. All the years of her suffering made her angry and full of pain, and now these mirrors and her reflections made her face the trauma. As she cried, she closed her eyes in grief. The next thing that happened only Danielle could explain later. She had a dream within this dream. When she closed her eyes, she saw all of her friends holding a party for her. It wasn't a birthday party. Rather, it was a welcome home celebration. And the person she disagreed with held a bouquet of yellow flowers in his hand. It was a sign of friendship, and he asked for forgiveness from her. Everyone was glad to see Danielle. Music played, and the celebration was incredible. Danielle couldn't believe what she saw. She opened her eyes and left the dream within a dream. The wizard in his floating cloud held still, however. He was getting impatient and asked, What is your answer? Danielle again looked at all the reflections. She said, All of these mirrors aren't correct. None of them are the true me. How can you answer that way? You must be mistaken. Danielle mustered some courage and replied, The true me is what I just dreamed. I saw my friends loving me and celebrating me. I saw my friend. We got into a big fight earlier, and he apologized and asked for my forgiveness. I think that is the true me. They love me. I love them. We love each other. These mirrors are exterior reflections. They do not represent the inner me. The wizard asked, Is that your wish then? If so, I grant it. For out of your mouth is the desire of your heart and your true identity. You do not need these. The wizard zapped the mirror with another bolt of lightning, and they exploded in a puff of smoke. They were gone. The wizard and his cloud spun around Danielle and created a whirlwind of dust around her. He cried out, Vanish, vanish, vanish away, I pray, for you, my precious one, have found the truth of yourself. They love you, you love them, we love each other. Now you are reconciled to your brother. Go home and shine your light to the world. Danielle woke up in her bed and sat up. The night was still hot and humid. The fan continued to blow its cool air. Danielle looked around and out the window to see the moon. Far off in the distance in the sky, she saw the Wizard of Dreams and his puffy white cloud zip across the view and disappear into the stars. Danielle felt a shift in her soul and healing in her heart. She now knows things will improve. The next day, Danielle met with her friend whom she had the major misunderstanding with. He admitted he was wrong and apologized for his words. They both made amends and everything changed for the better. Danielle grew in heart and became stronger every following day. She discovered outside identities do not dictate to her who she is. Rather, what she sees on the inside is all that counts. The lesson of the Wizard of Dreams forever transformed her. and now she has the confidence to face any challenge with any person she meets. Inceptio.
Wow, that's good.
Yay!
Yay, thank you, Lord. Yeah, that's really good. This is yeah, you were tapping into a lot of things that have just happened
Oh, really?
very recently. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, I can give you some feedback if you like.
Please do. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing. I understand it may be personal, so whatever you
No,
want to say.
no, absolutely. So, yes, I do a lot of office work, and I also am a dreamer. Just I love to imagine. I've always had a huge imagination, so I love just the whole idea of escaping into dreams. Um, I went through a difficult conversation with a person, and we, for about 2 years, it was during the period that COVID happened. It was actually a whole group of friends that it was kind of a weird situation
Mm,
because of the conversation, things that happened after that. And so the conversation happened, which resulted in a separation that was not my choice.
mm.
And so I had about 2 years of like, what is going on? And I prayed through and did the internal work and the forgiveness. But
Yes.
then just a few weeks ago, they called me and they asked for my forgiveness, and I gave them my forgiveness, and we're all reconciled and good to go. So
Wow.
it was beautiful. And
Wow.
so I love that you said, go be reconciled to your world like that. And that has been kind of my experience. Is it, even though that happened internally, there was something about the external conversation that just seemed to really be helpful. And so, yeah, so a lot of this stuff has actually been somewhat my experience, obviously not in the fantasy realm, but
Right, right.
some of it has really happened. So, yeah, and definitely the feeling out of control when all that happened, that I could definitely relate. Like, what is going on? I can't pull the parachute. Where's my safety? Like, I'm used to God coming through in certain ways, and He and I had some conversations about that. So I love, when it landed on the ground and the parachute popped open. That's kind of how it felt like. Like, okay, that was longer than I expected for that to happen, but I feel like it was a character building scenario, right? It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
what does God want to do in my heart, and what does He want to do to around my understanding of how certain relationships should work. So I feel like He's been really developing that and building strength. So
Wow.
I love like all the stuff like the clouds. I love clouds. The fact that it was a wizard in clouds, like I love all of that, and I actually take a lot of pictures of clouds. And
Okay.
the whipped cream is a fun image. My son loves to go downstairs and he'll shoot whipped cream in his mouth. So it's just I felt joy, like you talked about joy. The wizard sang a joyful song, and over the
Right.
past couple of years, what God's been doing in the middle of that scenario was teaching me how to develop joy in my life, that relational connection with Him and with others. And so it's just been really, really good. So,
Wow.
a bit of feedback.
Wow, that's amazing feedback. Oh my goodness. It's like, oh, first of all, you communicate very effectively. And so I applaud you for being able to give thorough feedback. And I'm
Sure.
so encouraged that the details of the story are resonating with your actual life. That's an amazing thing. Uh, so since we're starting the conversation, thank you.
Mhm.
People in the chat, please go ahead and comment, ask questions. I know that Lisa's there, Joe and Rachel are there, Alisha and Kylie are there. I'm sure there's others as well. But feel free to be participating in our conversation. So, I mean, what do you think about the mirrors in your
Yeah,
story?
thinking about that. I mean, I think, you know, mirrors can have to do with our own, maybe our own self image of ourself,
Or
like
identity?
how we see ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And how
Mm-hmm.
we see our own, and kind of understanding that our own identities of ourselves can be really warped and they can be distorted. And just learning to base our identity not based on those internal, measurements, but on what the Father has to say about us,
Right.
how He evaluates and sees us. And um, Yeah, I thought that was really cool that there was three, and then there was like, which reflection is the true you, and it was almost like that kind of felt like when you said that's kind of a little bit of a test,
Yes.
like, are you going to pass this test? And it wasn't do you really understand, what's happening? Like I feel like in the what you were sharing, the wizard was kind of fulfilling kind of a God type of a
Yeah.
role, you
Sure.
know, and that he was saying, hey, are you going to look at yourself in these ways? Or are you going to look at yourself according to how I see you, which
Right.
love has been a really important
And
thing.
so, what was the wish? Do you remember? And how does it tie to identity? See,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can tell you if you need help.
Yeah, yeah. Can you go back? Because I wrote a
So
whole bunch of stuff
the
down, but
wish is I need healing.
yes, yes.
So she also did a clever thing, right?
Hmm.
Well, what do you think I should ask for?
Right. She
It's
gave it
almost like if you go into your time of prayer, your time, you're studying your Bible, whatever, and you're like, God, I need to pray, but what do you want me to pray? And I think
back.
that's an interesting tactic that your character used, because even though we may think we know what we want to ask, he knows better than we do. And then he says, you need healing. Well, then all of a sudden comes the test of the three mirrors.
Yes.
So it's so if you need healing, well, then your identity is the thing that's being addressed.
Hmm.
I've learned that your identity isn't based on your money, your possessions, your accomplishments, your failures. Relationship is the thing that forms identity. And so it all depends on who's your daddy, right? A lie or something of light and truth. And so when you have your healing and your test of the mirrors, what is it that you did in the story that provided the solution? Can you? I know I just read the story, but do you remember what was the solution?
Yeah, I know. I, I'll write things down to remember things, so you'll
Yeah,
have to forget
it's okay.
life, right?
Yeah.
So I know I was closing my eyes in
Oh no, are you still there?
grief and with their at that point. Is that what it was? I'm trying to remember what
Your
happened.
video froze right at the crucial moment. You said you closed your eyes, and then what?
There was the closing the eyes in grief, and was that a prayer that happened that you said in the story after that?
Maybe it could be. It could be a dream within a dream. Maybe.
Oh, that was the dream within a dream. That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah. Hmm.
So the solution is that your identity comes from how you see inside your heart,
Right.
and it comes from where are your relationships.
Right.
So if you have unhealthy relationships, it makes a pretty unhealthy identity. So
Exactly.
you are fortunate that you have been surrounded by good family and friends, and that helps fashion your identity. And so when she came out of the dream within a dream,
Hmm.
she said none of these three mirrors don't matter. It
Hmm.
was one upside down, one that made my face look fat, and one that was true, but it's not the thing. It's external. And
Hmm.
so I think that the story is empowering you to look at the internal image of your heart.
Yes. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Cool. Now we
I,
have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I agree. I think that's been kind of um I think over the past 2 years, that's kind of been what that conflict forced me to do, and really got put into a position where, with COVID and with all the other things going on, having all of that time to really take some
Mm,
long time to look at that, you
yeah.
know. Then really, my story too, and that how it kind of, even that kind of fantasy world and everything, or you could call it real in a way. There's the spiritual world too, but it's been that God has asked me, how do you want to recreate your world and order it along with this identity that I've given you, right?
Yeah.
If I am love in you and I am joy in all these things, and how do you create these things around you and
Right.
also invite other people into that journey?
Right.
So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. Well put. We have some comments in the chat. Eve says, "Hi, Danielle. Hearts." Lisa says, "Joy is JOY, Jesus Over You, Danielle. Alice Walker is here. That was so beautiful. Love the storytelling. It was interesting to hear the last mirror looked like the most and seemed like the choice that you were going to make, but you said no. That is so good. Cool. I like what you talk about creating your own world. I have some rhetorical questions to ask you.
Sure.
Is the imagination good or evil?
Oh, it could be either.
Right.
I think God created our imagination and He designed it to work through, right? Like
Sure.
He wants to work through our imagination to communicate something of Himself
Uh-huh.
to everyone else, right? And so
Right.
imagination can be good, but it can also be twisted for evil purposes.
Sure. It's a technology that can be either way, right?
Exactly.
That's how I say the word technology. It's a spiritual technology. And so when it comes about creating your own world, doesn't the Bible say that we are already seated in heavenly places?
That's right.
Okay, cool. And another rhetorical question. Who's more powerful, Jesus or death?
Jesus, absolutely.
Right. So then why do people in the church say that when I die, then I will go to heaven?
That's true. Yeah.
Don't we go to church or a place and say, Father, I present myself before the throne of grace and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's going to heaven. That's being seated in heavenly places. And if you come to the place where you know that death isn't the gateway to heaven, Jesus is the gateway to the Father.
Yes.
And if we're already there, then our imagination, through the guidance of the Holy Spirit, can allow us to engage with Him or a cloud of witnesses or other places and see things and experience things. The prophetic isn't the end all to be all. It's just a tool that allows us to have an interaction with heavenly places. And so this dream you have of this crazy colored world with this funny poofy cloud guy and the wizard, what if that would be a place that God designed just for you, where you can meet Him and interact and feel His love? One of the things I've learned is that there's a place called your own personal garden in the heavenly places. And now, my story that I wrote for you today doesn't necessarily say that has to be your garden. That's something that maybe you can discover. And it's a place of friendship. It's a place of family, of intimacy. And so I would encourage you to let your imagination be guided by the Spirit to interact with Him and anyone else that He wants to introduce, because we need our entire family. But if you notice that this story was about a healing, right? And it was about a test. And so visual things can test us. So I want to encourage you to go and do this stuff. Go and engage with the heavenly places. And let this story be like an anchor for you, where you can go, okay, God gave this story to Jurri, and He read it to me, and I could see it. And now I'm going to go, okay, God, what do I do? Let's go together and have some fun. Let's enjoy a puffy white cloud of whipped cream. See, this is not religion, right? This is so anti-religious, right? And so many people in the Bible Belt will have major problems with what I'm doing. I'm aware of that. But the thing is, they're missing out on all the fun that we can have with Him and in relationship with Him. And it doesn't mean that we're doing anything wrong. It just means that we're engaging in relationship with Him. Is there anything else in your story that you want to unpack? Is there anything that you thought about at all?
Let me see. It was interesting, that part where, as I was falling, there was the spinning in the experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt like when you said that, I've definitely been through a season where there was a spinning, and it was kind of the out of control spinning kind of thing. But then learning to experiment and allowing that out of control place to become a place where I could really try some new things. It was almost like I kind of, like if I was sharing this to people, it's kind of like God really did almost take me out of one world and bring me into another through this conflict and the things that happen. So that's a really cool thing too.
Cool.
That's been so much better, but it's taken experimentation And I guess my encouragement to other people hearing this would be, if you go through a season like that, um, God might have something that He wants you to do or create or obey Him that might not look like what anybody else has done.
Mm.
And it's totally cool. Like, do it. It will be worth it if you experiment.
Yes.
And it's okay to experiment. It's okay to fail. It's
Right.
okay to try things. And He loves that. And so,
I love your courage. Do you understand that there's a courage in your voice of joy at the same time? It's almost like, dude, it's a sandbox. Go out and play. One of the things that we say here at Legends of the Wind, and I've said in other shows, is that these stories are meant to give you permission granted to be who you are and to pursue your destiny and your dream. I mean, one of the things that the religious system wants to do is to shut down your desire. And what you just said is the opposite of that. It's like, have some fun, enjoy your life, go for it. You may stumble, you may fall, but that's okay. That's life. I so appreciate, because even though you're smiling and all joyful, you have a courage that's fierce inside your heart, and that enables you to stand when there's tough times. And so even though you can be all happy and joyful with me on the show, I know that deep down inside your heart there's a backbone for you, and that enables you to handle the tough situations. So I want to encourage you. I recognize that about you, and I believe in you. Joe Moon says, what did the lack of a parachute cord mean? Well, that's a good question. Maybe there's just not a simple solution. See,
yeah,
she could have pulled the parachute cord, and that would have saved her. But what she needed to do was to say stop.
yeah,
She was out of control. She was falling. And it was her voice that needed to be heard. It was her declaration that needed to be heard. Because that declaration of stop saved her. And then, of course, the parachute didn't show up, was that the people didn't show up in her life. In your life, Danielle, there was let's talk about that. I remember the issue of delay, when you needed help from people but they showed up late, right?
yeah,
Does that
yeah.
resonate for you? Does that work for you in your life?
I went through that many times in my life, and actually went through healing over that thing with the Lord.
Wow.
Hey, Lord, like this, I have asked for help, and I know you are my help, right? So what gives, right? So me and the Lord had to have a little lamenting session and work through that.
Right.
In this situation, there was no way for me to access those people, right, that I would have needed, because of the influence of the people that were having the conflict. So there was no cord, like there was nothing I could access to make that happen. And so again, like I do agree, it's definitely a matter of learning to use my own voice, learning to stand up where I needed to, and yeah. So
Wow.
that was
That's perfect. It's a perfect explanation. So Joe had a good question that let us unpack that. Thank you, Joe, for your question. I appreciate it. Brilliant. Guys, if you're in the chat, keep asking questions or making comments. We would welcome that. So, what do you think about this world in this dream is weird colors, and it's not it's an odd place, isn't it? I mean, I can see it when I wrote it, but I try to be faithful to communicate to you, the reader, about what it looks like. There's something about that kind of style or design that reflects you, right?
yeah.
What would you say to that?
Well, number one, I was a photographer. I love beauty. I love color. Like, I went on a little rampage and stoked a little hair thing this year, and did all kinds of color in my hair just because I really love color. I've had some visions of things in the past where I saw colors that weren't,
Huh.
color color that was alive, that was responding to Jesus, and other things. So color really means a lot to me, and I love bright colors. I love happy things. So I just thought it was really cool that everything was just so different and really kind of magical, and kind of almost like a fantasy type of a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I am actually wanting eventually to work on writing some music or some lyrics that would try to and who knows how to do this. You have to reach into the heart of God, right? Like he has to give this to you, but really looking at what the new world, like what the new creation might be like, just with my imagination, right? uh,
Wow.
Trying to paint a picture of hope for other people. And I always think about, the beautiful colors and the saturation and the light and the way that that will look. And as well as all the real big things like, no more death, no more sorrow, no more racial divisions. Like, what is all that really going to be like? And so the colors just kind of remind me of all of
That's
that.
beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. And you did photography, and oh, that's so cool. I mean, like the Alisha, my wife, does the designs. Let's see, get this right. So you got different colors and worlds and things. I was thinking when I got this story, I'm like, oh, Alisha could do an amazing, fun job because she does very whimsical paintings when she was in art school and things like that. I love that about her stuff, and I think that her designs would fit well with your personality. Actually, it's a brilliant thing. Lisa says many feel like they're getting the short end of the stick. Oh yeah, I get that. Yeah. Wow. What would you say to other people who are watching this for the first time? And how would you encourage them, if you would, to get their own story? Like, what would you tell them about your experience today?
Definitely, that was super encouraging. I would say, Jurri, that things that you said were right on. The symbols and everything, it really has a lot of meaning to unpack. I will be working on this for a while. um, and it's really encouraging as to where I am right now. And I think what God is starting to establish in my life. And so thank you for helping really kind of affirm, I think, what God is doing in my life, and for just bringing I really appreciate the level of detail and fun and everything else that you brought into that, and just bringing a part of God's heart to me through that. And
Well, it's
definitely, I would encourage everyone watching that, if you have a chance and you can do that, I think you will be very blessed and encouraged and strengthened by Jurri's ministry.
aw, thank you very much. Yeah, if you guys are really interested in getting a story, go to legendsofthewind.com. Go to our store and look for Become a Legend. And by the way, if you're watching and you've already gotten the story from me, but you want to get one of the illustrated books from us, that product is there as well. You can get an illustration, and you can get it in hardbound or softbound. You can see the talent of Alisha being able to paint an amazing image for you. And so thank you very much for your time, Danielle. And remember, our stories are on sale right now. That's 60% off. Typically, the price of these is $250. This is a creative work. It's a parable, a prophetic parable, a portrait for you. This is not ministry time or like in church kind of thing or going to a conference. This is a magnificent creative work. And so right now our price is at $99 for this. And we'd like to encourage you to consider that. Also, if you want to check out our previous episodes, we're found on YouTube at this time. And you can find us on Instagram and also on Facebook under Legends of the Wind. Also, if you are interested, you can watch more of our shows. We're typically on Mondays and Thursday nights, and you can check out our schedules, our scheduled shows on YouTube. If you want to reach me, you can find me in an email, support@legendsofthewind.com. I'd love to hear from you. Alice chimed in. I like how aware Daniel was with what was going on. For instance, she knew she was dreaming and was like, okay, so I can change this because it's a dream. I don't usually know I'm dreaming in my dream. That's true, because you do have a good self-awareness. Like, you're able to speak really well today and very, very clear in your thoughts, and you listen really well. And I think that is reflecting in this dream, where I'm dreaming. I don't have to do it this way. This is not controlling me. I take the reins. And I think that your voice is so crucial and so important to be able to declare what's needed in the moment. So if you also like our show, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe and hit the bell button. We want to continue building our audience and building our brand and everything. We're so excited about meeting new people. I mean, all these new people on this show I'm meeting. I want to create this amazing community. So guys in the chat, guys who are watching, thank you so much for joining us. Danielle, I really appreciate you and your enthusiasm. I mean, even as our days were coming closer, you were posting and everything. That was so cool. So thank you so much for for allowing me to deliver your beautiful story. So, guys, I think that's it. Danielle, any final thoughts?
I just really appreciate everything you and God have done together, and hoping that everyone will, that many people will be able to be blessed by this and come on board. And I just want to encourage all my friends, you should get a story.
Thank you very much. Oh, one more comment popped up. Danielle brings so much safety and peace in our group. Thank you, Jesus, for Danielle and her story. And that's from Eve Hamid. Thank you, Eve. That's a beautiful comment. So, guys, wonderful show. I'm so glad to tell this story and to bless you, Danielle. So thanks, everybody. We'll have a good show. And by the way, we have one more show tonight. So if you stick around on YouTube, it'll be 8 o'clock Mountain Time. That's how I know it. So we'll have one more show tonight with a guy named Jonathan. Check it out. I highly recommend you see it. And I'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.